The turmoil surrounding Electra Forrester's pregnancy on The Bold and The Beautiful has sent shockwaves through both the Los Angeles fashion industry and the show's passionate fan base. For months, fans watched as Electra dealt with the tangled aftermath of her romance with Will Spencer, a young man torn between devotion, heartache, and unforeseen obligations. The discovery that Electra is now expecting a child has added to the series' already complex web of secrets, betrayals, and romantic entanglements. However, the major question remains like a continuous shadow over every scene: who is the baby's father? To grasp the entire significance of this development, one must return to the stormy events that preceded it. Electra, the fresh-faced Forrester relative who arrived in town full of innocence and ambition, was swiftly dragged into Will Spencer's orbit. Will, the son of powerful media magnate Bill Spencer and Katie Logan, had a passionate but ultimately tragic relationship with Luna Nozawa. Luna's narrative took a dark turn, with deception, escape from repercussions, and a pregnancy she claimed belonged to Will. That revelation alone crushed Electra, who had begun to form a true relationship with Will following Luna's purported downfall. The night of Will's promotion celebration became a watershed point in the show's history. Between champagne toasts and corporate congrats, lines crossed in unexpected ways. Will, reeling from the emotional turmoil of Luna's reappearance and her claim that he was the father of her unborn child, sought refuge. Electra, devastated yet hopeful, had intimate moments with him that night. What followed was a flurry of confessions, accusations, and broken trust. When Luna's pregnancy was confirmed and paternity testing revealed Will, Electra's world appeared to fall. She withdrew into her grief, wondering what she thought she knew about love and devotion inside the Forrester-Spencer group. However, life in soap operas rarely permits characters to languish continuously. As the weeks grew into months, Electra's body began to transmit messages that she couldn't ignore. Nausea in the mornings, unexplainable weariness throughout long days at Forrester Creations, and a minor shift in her physique encouraged her to take a pregnancy test privately. The two pink lines staring back at her confirmed what she had feared and, in some secret part of her heart, perhaps yearned for. Electra was pregnant. The timing was strangely similar to the tragic night she spent with Will, which had already resulted in one life-changing outcome for Luna. The early aftermath was predicted in its ferocity. Electra initially confided in a small circle of individuals, possibly anticipating the uproar that would ensue from any public disclosure. Ivy Forrester, her protective aunt according to the family tree, was more concerned than ever, verging on excessive. Ivy's behavior has long piqued fans' interest, with speculation that she may be Electra's original mother rather than her aunt, a cover-up from years ago involving a teenage pregnancy and familial arrangements to save face. Whether or not that twist occurs, Ivy's reaction to Electra's news will most likely be explosive, given her distrust of the Spencer men. She has constantly warned Electra about Will's lineage, citing Bill's history of strained relationships and conflicted loyalties. Meanwhile, Will remains a figure pulled between several directions. His relationship with Luna's child has driven him into a hesitant co-parenting position, even as Luna's fate remains uncertain following her escape and subsequent difficulties. Learning that Electra is also having a child, possibly his, would add another layer of complexity to an already hectic life. Will he embrace parenthood twice, or will the news lead to even more confusion? The Spencer family dynamics would change considerably, with Bill possibly seeing it as an opportunity to bring the families closer together through grandkids, while Katie Logan would regard it as yet another complication in her ongoing relationships with Bill. R.J. Forrester comes into the picture as a complicated issue. In recent developments, R.J. has expressed an interest in Electra, providing solace during her worst moments when Will's attention was divided. Their flirtations and burgeoning relationship have not gone ignored, prompting rumors that R.J. may be the father if a rebound meeting occurs. If paternity suspicions surface, R.J. and Will's enmity, which is already smoldering over family business and personal slights, might erupt into open conflict. RJ's mild demeanor contrasts strongly with Will's more impetuous inclinations, making him a tempting option in Electra's eyes during times of vulnerability. However, the strongest evidence and narrative momentum point to Will as the likely father. The timing of the pregnancy corresponds to that single, emotionally charged night they shared. Soap operas thrive on such coincidences, in which one passionate evening leads to life-changing outcomes. If Will is the father, that means that two women he has had intimate relationships with are expecting his children almost simultaneously. This echoes classic soap themes such as double pregnancies, paternity twists, and split affections, which have defined the genre for decades. Luna's narrative provides an extra layer of mystery. Her pregnancy, which was previously considered to be lost or exacerbated by her legal issues, has been a cause of constant turmoil. Some fans imagine outlandish scenarios in which Luna miscarries or experiences other misfortunes, only to later claim or tamper with Electra's child out of desperation or vengeance. Such plotlines have been hinted to in fan conversations and spoiler teases, but nothing substantial has confirmed them. The parallel pregnancies might result in hospital mix-ups, switched infants, or suspicions of foul play, all of which have already been used successfully on The Bold and The Beautiful. With this pregnancy, Electra's character arc will take a big turn. She has always exuded moral clarity and kindness, often being positioned as the good girl among the Forrester family's more cunning members. Becoming a mother may compel her to make difficult decisions, whether to raise the child alone, seek Will's assistance despite the anguish he has inflicted, or rely on her extended family for direction. Her connection with Ivy would most likely strengthen or deteriorate depending on how she handled the news. If paternity testing becomes necessary, the results could either confirm Will's role or lead to unexpected revelations. The emotional impact on Electra cannot be emphasized. She's already dealt with the sorrow of discovering about Luna's pregnancy with Will's child, feeling second best in a love triangle she never wanted to be a part of. Carrying her own baby in identical circumstances may now feel like poetic justice or cruel repetition. Scenes of her poring at sonogram photographs, patting her still flat stomach, or sobbing in private would create great dramatic opportunities. Her interactions with other women who have navigated parenting on the show, such as Steffi Forrester, Hope Logan, and even Brooke Logan, could serve as mentorship or cautionary tales. As the plot progresses, the paternity question will dominate conversations in the Forrester estate, Il Giardino, and Forrester Creations executive offices. DNA tests, confrontations, and tearful admissions are unavoidable. The father might be Will, forging a permanent link between the Spencer and Forrester families. Or, in classic soap tradition, it could be someone else entirely, a one-night blunder during RJ's rebound weakness, or even a lesser-known character established specifically for this purpose. Remy, a potential dark horse according to certain fan theories, or other peripheral characters may appear if the writers chose to defy expectations. What is evident is that Electra's pregnancy is more than just a baby story. It captures the bold and the beautiful basic themes: love complicated by secrets, family relationships tested by passion, and the persistent question of legacy. The father of this child will shape alliances, rivalries, and future generations in the connected realms of fashion, journalism, and high-stakes romance. As Electra prepares for motherhood, the audience anticipates the disclosures that will change everything. The anticipation grows with each episode. Will the truth be revealed at a peaceful doctor's office, a heated disagreement at a family gathering, or a dramatic courtroom confrontation? Will Electra find pleasure in unexpected places, or will the father's identity cause even more turmoil? In the unpredictable world of daytime drama, one thing is certain. The answer to the question, who is the father of Electra's baby, will provide surprises, tears, and possibly a new beginning for a heroine long deserving of her own spotlight. The drama continues to unfold, one heartbeat at a time, in the city where fashion and fate intersect every day. Electra sat silently in the dark light of the living room, her hands resting on her stomach, the weight of her secret pressing against her heart. The silence around her seemed louder than any argument or allegation that might come her way. Only a few hours before, She had glanced at the test again, hoping that the results might change. But it did not. The fact was undeniable. She was pregnant. The discovery left her breathless, overwhelmed, and afraid all at once. A kid meant an unplanned future, but the life growing inside her already felt surreal. But the one question she couldn't get out of her mind was who the father was. Her imagination repeated the last few weeks as a sequence of scenes she couldn't stop or modify. Each recollection triggered emotions she had tried to suppress. Every decision she had taken felt like a thread leading to this point. She had always assumed she could handle her intricate relationships and keep everything in balance. But suddenly that delicate equilibrium had crumbled, leaving her surrounded by uncertainty. Electra never anticipated her life would change so dramatically. For months, she had been preoccupied with work, friendships, and negotiating the complex social milieu that surrounded her. Romance had entered her life gradually, almost unexpectedly. One connection began as a friendship, which grew slowly over time, based on trust and shared secrets. Another had arrived with intensity, passion, and the thrill of experiencing something hazardous and unpredictable. She had convinced herself that she could keep those worlds apart. She believed that her feelings for each man were distinct enough that nothing would collide. But reality had a way of revealing even the most skillfully built illusions. The first man had always been reliable, someone she could confide in about her concerns and dreams. He exuded a serene demeanor that made her feel safe. When she was with him, life seemed less chaotic. Conversations flowed freely, laughter came naturally, and they understood each other, without frequent explanation. Many others felt they were destined to be more than pals. Electra had long opposed the notion, fearing that changing their relationship would ruin what they already had. Then there was the second man who arrived and changed everything. Every moment with him was exciting. Their connection grew swiftly, propelled by attraction and emotional vulnerability. He challenged her in ways she was not used to, forcing her to reconsider her choices and goals. Being with him felt like jumping into a storm, exhilarating, unpredictable, and impossible to avoid. At first, she believed she could negotiate both relationships without consequence. She believed she knew her own emotions well enough to keep things from getting messy. However, emotions rarely follow reasoning. The more she became engaged with each man, the more difficult it was to distinguish what she felt from what she desired. Now, on the verge of a life-altering revelation, Electra recognized how flimsy her delusion had been. The pregnancy forced her to face truths she had previously attempted to escape. The timeline blurred in her mind as she struggled to recall every detail, date, and moment that could provide the solution she needed. However, the more she thought about it, the more uncertain she became. Both possibilities seemed equally real and terrible. Her thoughts turned to the reactions she would receive after the news became public. Secrets were rarely kept hidden for long in her environment. Somebody would notice the alterations eventually. Someone would pose inquiries. And once the inquiries began, the truth demanded to be heard. She imagined the first man finding out about the pregnancy. His countenance would likely turn from surprise to concern in an instant. He had always been protective of her, willing to support her when circumstances were tough. Part of her believed he would gladly accept the child if it was his. But another part of her worried the disappointment that would emerge in his eyes if the truth came out differently. Then she imagined the second man learning the news. His reaction was much more difficult to predict. Passion had always defined their relationship, yet it could easily develop into conflict. Would he be overjoyed at the prospect of being a father? Or would he regard the circumstance as a complication he was unprepared to face? The ambiguity made her feel caught between hope and anxiety. Electra rose up and carefully paced around the room, attempting to clear her head. Every step seemed to raise the same question over and over. Who's the father? It was a question with far-reaching repercussions, not just for her, but for everyone in her life. She knew she'd have to tell them both eventually. Waiting too long will just worsen the situation. However, having the guts to initiate that conversation felt nearly impossible. The words she wanted to say lingered in her mind, yet voicing them out would change everything. Outside, The evening air was peaceful and still, in sharp contrast to the tumult in her mind. Life went on as usual outside the house's walls. People laughed, argued, and planned for tomorrow, unaware that her world had changed utterly. Electra softly placed her hand on her stomach again, feeling both astonishment and apprehension. Even as things became more complicated, the baby remained innocent throughout. That revelation triggered a tremendous sense of responsibility, overshadowing her worries. Whatever occurred next, she had to safeguard this child and make decisions that would define a brighter future. But first, she needed to reveal the truth. The next morning came sooner than she expected. Sleep had been uneasy, with scattered dreams and unsolved questions. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a lady embarking on an unexpected journey. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends and colleagues, meeting reminders, and casual discussions that seemed small in comparison to what she was going through. She pondered ignoring everything and disappearing for a few days, but she realized that avoiding the situation would not help. Instead, she took a deep breath and began prepared for the upcoming uncomfortable conversations. The first man would most likely listen intently and ask questions in a calm, deliberate manner. He'd want to know every aspect before reacting. The second man might react more emotionally, demanding answers she wasn't sure she could give. Despite her trepidation, Electra recognized that this news had the potential to transform their lives in unanticipated ways. Sometimes the most difficult events prompted people to show their actual selves. Perhaps the truth would restore clarity where confusion once reigned. As the hours passed, she struggled with the same uncertainty. Every scenario unfolded differently in her imagination. In one account, the infant belonged to the father who had always been dependable and kind. In another, it belonged to the man whose desire had upended her world. Either outcome would drastically alter the future in ways she couldn't imagine. By the afternoon, Electra recognized that the question had become the focal point of everything. Who was the baby's father? It was more than just a mystery. It was a watershed moment that would alter relationships, loyalties, and expectations. She knew that answers would ultimately arrive. Tests could validate the truth, conversations could uncover buried emotions, and time would drive everyone to face reality. But until that moment came, she would be suspended in doubt. For the time being, all she could do was gather her courage and face whatever happened next. Because, no matter how stunning the reality, one thing was certain. The announcement of Electra's pregnancy would generate ripples in every relationship around her. Before the truth was revealed, secrets would arise, loyalties would be tested, and hearts may be broken. And somewhere in the midst of all that commotion stood Electra, clutching onto the tenuous hope that when the father's question was ultimately addressed, the parties concerned would find a way to move forward. The mystery surrounding her unborn kid had only recently begun, and the ramifications were sure to change everything. Electra stood near the window as the sun slowly fell below the horizon, bathing the sky in orange and fading gold. The tranquil evening felt bizarre in comparison to the barrage of ideas flying through her mind. Every passing minute pushed her closer to the point at which she would have to stop wondering and confront the truth. She understood that secrets had a tendency of surfacing unexpectedly, and nothing in her world remained concealed forever. Her phone sat on the table beside her, the screen dark and silent for the moment. However, she was aware that it will eventually light up with a call or message that might change everything. One chat may set off a chain reaction that neither she nor the guys involved were ready for. The future felt like a slightly open door, showing only shadows beyond. Electra took a calm breath and attempted to steady herself. Fear lingered, but something else was rising inside her as well: determination. The mystery surrounding the paternity was unsettling, but the child she carried deserved honesty and courage. She would deal with whatever situation arose. She knew deep down that the truth might shock everyone. It may boost one connection while damaging another. It could disclose secret loyalties or long-buried emotions that no one had dared to confess previously. In a society where emotions were already knotted and fragile, this discovery may cause even more drama. Electra understood, however, that this dreadful time might lead to enlightenment. Once the father's inquiry was answered, the continuous speculation would come to an end. People would be forced to confess their true positions, and the future, however uncertain, would begin to take form. As night fell around her, Electra softly placed her palm on her stomach again. The mystery was far from solved, but one thing was certain. When the truth was revealed, their lives would never be the same again.